Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to the Moms Like Me podcast powered by Support Now. This morning, I'm joined by one of my most favorite humans, Abby Zachritz. For those that don't know Abby is an incredible mom of 5 children. She's also known to be Advocacy Abby on Instagram and Support Now's newest director of Family Advocacy. So Abby, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Jordan. I'm really excited to be here today.
Same. So today's podcast is going to be a little bit more focused on some tactical tips and tricks on finding funding, rather, if you have a family member with a diagnosis or disability. But before we get to those tips, Abby, I'd love for you to share a little bit more about what brought you to this world and kind of what was the catalyst for you to start delving into all this.
Yeah, so about, almost 11 years now, my husband and I decided to come to Gainesville, Florida. My husband was in ministry. We were doing what they call as a church plant, where you come and you start up a church. And we started that. And we had moved here in August, and December we launched the church. And then in April, we were celebrating our first ever Easter. And I had a staff meeting 2 days later. And we were preparing for my oldest son, who's my second born. I have 5 kids. At the time I was pregnant with my 5th. We were preparing for his VPK recital. And so running around, getting everything ready, and we noticed that Wyatt had left the living room. And we started looking for him, and we found him in our backyard pool. It was a new home. We had never had a pool before, and he had fallen in, most likely reaching for a toy. That's like one of the most common reasons kiddos have near drownings. And so he had fallen in, and we immediately went into overdrive. And after 40 minutes of the most insane story you've probably ever heard, of them calling it and then coming back to life, and we were given a pretty grim outlook. First, they told us that he wouldn't make it through the night. Then they told us that he would more than likely be in a vegetative state his entire life. Like, he won't make it past 3 days. But then he kept going. And we realized really quickly that we were going to have to be his biggest advocate in this world of diagnosis and disability, because there were a lot of treatments, a lot of therapies, a lot of things that we wanted to try that insurance didn't cover. And so I became a sleuth on the internet. I found grants and scholarships and foundations to start covering all these things. And parents started asking. I'd see somebody at physical therapy, and they'd say, "Hey, I heard you got a grant to fly across the nation and get stem cell therapy. How did you do that?" And so I would just tell them, I went to this place, I signed up here, I provided these documents, and they granted it to me. And so I was starting to tell mom to mom just how they could do this also. Started to really cross over from kiddos that were near drowning survivors to kiddos that had genetic disorders or different diagnosis that needed similar treatments, but for totally different reasons, different therapies for totally different reasons. And they were also starting to get grants. And so in 2024, the January of 2024, I launched Advocacy Abby on Instagram, and I just started sharing all my resources. I just started posting a grant a day, and that has evolved to me coaching and counseling people on how to find grants, how to fundraise effectively, which is a big part of what I do. Because a lot of people, you just don't know what you don't know, and you don't know how to ask these questions. So yeah, that's what's led to today.
Abby, I admire you greatly for so much of your story. And I think for those that don't know this world, meaning you don't have a family member with a diagnosis or a disability, it's hard to articulate just the degree of overwhelm that families in these situations feel. It's hard to overemphasize how expensive it all is, because one of the things I've learned in working with you, and even in conversations we have with families, is that it really is a full lifestyle shift. I mean, it's everything from therapies to equipment to the cars that you drive to, of course, the medical bills and in some cases, hopefully respite and getting, having caregivers have a break. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more, even in your own situation with Wyatt and your family. Approximately, how many grants did you find for yourself? How much money did you raise for yourself or for your family? Because I think it is really important for people that don't understand this world to understand just the enormity of it all, and why sometimes not just finding grants, but crowdfunding is necessary. It's not because you want to do it; it's because you need to do it. So I think that context here would be really helpful.
Yeah. So the Department of Agriculture for the U.S. did a study, and they concluded that to raise a child it's neurotypical, that has no disability, no diagnosis, costs around $240,000 for the parent. To raise a child with a diagnosis on disability, on average, costs about $1.4 million.
Wow.
So you go from having a kid who's expensive, because all kids are expensive, to having a kid that is the equivalent of having 6 to 7 kids financially.
Wow.
And so not only are you overwhelmed and stressed with just life circumstance, but now you have to figure out how to pay for things that you never would have to pay for. I mean, an average physical therapy session is $150 an hour. So go do that 3 times a week for the next 10 years. Try to put a family of 7 in a regular minivan when you need a wheelchair accessible van and a nurse's seat. These are all things that we had to figure out. We drive a Ford Transit. I think it's 15 or 20 passenger Ford Transit. They removed 2 rows of seats to put my son's wheelchair clamps in. So it's just you can't even imagine. So I tell people this all the time, especially if you're new to diagnosis or disability, like if there was an event like we had, or you just heard the news from the doctor, that is the time to fundraise. And I'm not exaggerating, because one, it's new and people want to support you. Your friends and family and your community are going to feel helpless. Like, they love you so much, they want to help. And so I encourage people when I'm coaching and counseling them to start a Support Now page, start fundraising, and start educating yourself on what grants are out there for your diagnosis or disability or for your loved ones. There are so many things you can get covered. And when it's new or you have a specific need, fundraising is great. And then there's these in-between times that you're like, I'm not going to fundraise for the stroller that my kid needs. There's grants for that. And so putting those 2 things in place can really help you have a sense of, okay, I can just focus on what I need to focus on, which is my family.
And correct me if I'm wrong, sometimes in order to be eligible for grants, you have to prove or show that there's been some sort of fundraising effort. So a lot of times that helps unlock the grants that you might be seeking after. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. There's some that you have to prove that you've either been denied by insurance, so there is no coverage for it, and you've done due diligence. You've tried to fundraise. You can say, hey, look, I started an account. Here's my goal. I've raised $2,000. Actually, that was we recently got a Jossie stroller. So just to show you the cost, okay, a Jossie stroller is around $5,000, no accessories. The accessories being like wheels that can go on sand. So that was our big reason for getting it. We live in Florida. We want to be able to take our son to the beach with us, and he's too heavy to carry now. Those accessories plus a few others were additional $5,000. What mom has to pay $5,000 for a stroller in the first place, right? We did a little bit of fundraising, and then we got 2 grants to cover it, 100% paid. And people were excited to give Wyatt his Jossie. It was unexpected. It kind of happened naturally, but my friends wanted to do that. And so it ended up being a huge blessing for us. He's now on a soccer team. He needs the Jossie stroller. We take him on our beach trips now, and he actually doesn't have to just stay out for a couple minutes before we are worried about his other wheelchair. We can just pull him out. It's a safe place for him. It's a game changer. And that was because we used grants and fundraising together.
Well, and I think that example is such a really, it's an important one, because you've been on this journey now for many years, and it shows that for families like yours, it never ends. There's not there's not a finish line where we no longer need grants. There's not a finish line of we're no longer going to need fundraising efforts. as you've said before in a previous interview with me, extraordinary calls for extraordinary. And so I think one of the things that I'm hearing you say is families first have to accept the fact that asking for money is hard. Finding money is a difficult thing. And it very much is the reality given the circumstances and how the system is set up and how frankly how expensive it is.
Just because I've done fundraisers doesn't mean I'm not generous. And we have to get past that. I gave to a fundraiser this week. There are people going through things in our community. I've received from fundraisers. And that's how community works. We have to support each other when things are, and here's the thing, people want to. They want to give. All you have to do is give them permission that it's okay.
Yeah.
And so when you have a loved one, and I encourage friends and families, check on your people. If you have somebody in your life that has a diagnosis of disability, ask them, do you have something in your life right now that would really change if you had it? Fundraise for them. Come alongside them. That is one of the biggest things that make it hard for families is they feel like they're having to do the ask and it's hard for them. So if you're a friend or a family member, say, hey, where are you at right now with everything? I know you do therapies, you do intensives, you need that treatment. Where are you at? It's been hard on you guys. So I want to come alongside you. Is there something? So the reason we got my van, I had a car accident, just a fender bender, but it was enough for the insurance to say we're totaling it because the car's not worth covering, right? We had needed a new car anyway because we couldn't even we always had to take 2 vehicles because I could not fit all my family and because I had to have a nurse next to Wyatt. So we decided, okay, we're going to try to figure out this whole wheelchair accessible van. My husband started looking. They are not cheap, especially for a family of 7. My girlfriend heard about my accident, came to me and said, hey, would you allow me to do a fundraiser for you? I began to sob because it was somebody seeing like, yeah, and I was immediately, yes. There was no hesitation. I knew we needed that support. That was huge for us. And then on my end, I started looking for grants. Who could help? Like, could we get a chunk here or there that will help that big cost? And we were able to find grants. So yeah, I think just making sure you check in on those that you love is really important. Or if you have somebody you're really, really close to, just ask them, hey, would you come alongside me and help me on this page? I need to raise a certain amount of money, get my kid this treatment.
Yeah, and I love what you said earlier, which I think is also super important. Just because you're in a state of needing help doesn't mean that doesn't negate the fact that you can also give support at the same time. Those two are not mutually exclusive. You can both be in a position of accepting funds, accepting help, and still find a way to be generous in your own way to other people. I think that's kind of like the beauty of the cyclical nature of giving is it's something that once you receive, you almost immediately want to begin to give it back because you know what a relief it can be, not even in terms of the amount, but just what it feels like. Mm-hmm. To be supported. And again, I think this is really important. You are years into your journey and still finding yourself needing to do these things. I think so often the mentality of families that we've spoken to, they say, well, I've already done a big fundraiser many years ago. I don't think my community has anything else to give. And I see these families begin to justify why they don't want to ask for help anymore. So it sounds like what I'm hearing from you is certainly there might be a very real sense of like, well, I just asked. And if there's a very concrete, specific need and you show your work, meaning you're showing and demonstrating to your community the things that you're doing to also provide for yourself, there's no need to be reluctant to put your family and yourself back out there.
Yeah, actually, I teach transparency. So when I coach someone on a fundraiser, I tell them to be very clear on what they're asking for. So one of the, I don't want to say worst things, but just difficult things to fundraise through is when you just say, it's just a tough time. When you say, we need a wheelchair accessible van because, and you explain your situation, people go, okay. And here's the thing. One of the things we talked about receiving and giving, when you're giving, you might give $20. right? But it's 1,000 people gave. So it just adds up really, really fast. And you're not asking any one person, could you please gather this $35,000 for me? You're asking people to follow you, to support you, to pray for you, and if able, to give.
Yeah.
And so to me, that is the difference. Like when you realize like, hey, it's okay to ask and it's okay to be clear of what you're asking for. I'm not just gonna 2-3 years later after a big fundraiser of the event go, hey, our first fundraiser was for a hyperbaric oxygen chamber. I was very specific about what it would heal in my son's body. People came through. I mean, I was shocked how fast people came through.
For those that can't see this podcast, Abby, you present both verbally and physically as an extraordinarily capable person. So it's almost like you have to relent in the sense of like, it's not asking for a handout. Like even established, good salary, all of like regular, normal, healthy, happy families find themselves in this place. And I think you're so relatable in this way. Every day I wake up so proud to be able to say that you're helping families alongside of Support Now, because I think the support you provide, sure, it's helping with fundraising tips. Sure, it's helping find grants, but it's also a sense of companionship, because there, as you have often talked about, there's a loneliness in this. There's a nobody understands what I'm going through. And you do understand. You not only have you walked in their shoes, you are walking in their shoes. So I'd love for you to talk a little bit about Connect, and then we'll wrap up, because I wanna make sure that people that are interested in engaging with you know that there's an opportunity to do so. But first, let's start with Connect.
Yeah. So about 6 months ago, I met your wonderful team and your CTO, Morgan. And we shared a vision to create a platform that would put all these grants. So everything I'd been doing manually with my clients, and we now have in Connect. And so you can go to the largest database of sortable, living, breathing grants. And I say living and breathing because we have a team that actually reviews these grants to make sure they're up to date, correct information, if they open or close, and we are constantly adding new grants. And so you can go to Connect, sign up for a free profile, 100% free, and it will sort them by your location and diagnosis, because a lot of grants are specific on where you live or what diagnosis or disability they support. And then you can start funneling through and apply right through our site. It takes you right to their application, apply. One of my favorite things I'm hearing is from foundations going, holy mackerel. Since Connect started, I went from getting 20 applications every couple months to getting 200. And it's because people are finding these resources that, a lot of these foundations, they don't have the marketing resources. They just put all their money into giving to others. And so we're able to allow the world, and it is worldwide, we have grants all over the world, to see that there are options for their kiddo or for themselves.
Yeah, and I think the thing that stands out to me about Connect is that it's not that money and resources aren't out there for these communities. They are. They're just hard to find. And when you're asking a parent that is already in a state of overwhelm to try to figure it out, they don't even know what to look for. And so Connect is designed to take the thinking out of it. You just say what the diagnosis is, where you live, what impairments, and then we, Connect, will automatically generate the list of grants that you qualify for. And I think there's just power in the efficiency of it. Don't underestimate just how large decision fatigue is for families that are trying to navigate, especially a kiddo with a disability, as well as potentially other children. There are resources out there for you. We want to make that easier. And again, this is designed certainly in partnership with Support Now, but with Abby's experience in mind. I think it's really powerful to say this was built by a mom that's been through your exact challenges, and every day we will get better at serving more families like Abby's. And then lastly, of course, we see how these things all fit together, as Abby has alluded to. Certainly insurance is a part of the journey for families. Finding grants is another. And for many families, that is just two pieces of the larger pie, and the last piece of that being fundraising. And sometimes it won't go in that order, of course, but our hope through Support Now is not just to provide the grants, but it's also to provide the crowdfunding platform where families keep more of the money and provide the functionality that serves families beyond money. It might be meals, it might be updates, it might be things around the house or with other children. And so I'm so excited about the future of Support Now alongside of you, Abby. And for those that find themselves in a similar position as Abby or know someone that's going through what Abby has, I encourage you to take a look at her Instagram, Advocacy Abby, or to go to our Instagram, Support Now, and find ways to explore this, because Abby is now providing a lot of these tips to families at no cost. And so I'm just so excited. Abby, anything else you want to share before we wrap up today?
Yeah, no, I'm pumped to be the director of family advocacy. I love working with people that actually value people, and to know that now I can give my services to people at no cost to them is, to me, huge. So, anybody out there, if they need support in this way, I would love to connect with them. So
thank you, Abby. All right, we will wrap up for today. Again, check out Advocacy Abby on Instagram, or you can go to supportnow.org to check out everything that we provide. We'll talk to you soon.